Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for The Bear Season 2, Episode 10. This is the finale. This episode is actually called The Bear, so this is sort of like an album titled after a song, and then you get to the song and the album, and you're feeling like, okay, since this is the title of the album, it better be a really good song, right?
Yeah, and boy, was it. I mean, this also could have been called Forks, and so could the Christmas episodes. Like every episode had to deal with forks, and I thought it was really clever how they actually were able to tie that back into this as well to be like, oh, of all the things we ran out of, it's forks. I was like, that's so clever. The show is so
It,
clever.
it really, really is. And it's a funny experience watching a show like this a little bit late, which we have,
Yeah.
because a lot of people, while we were watching this, we weren't spoiled. And there was a ton of people
Yeah.
being like, okay, you need to watch Forks. We can't wait till you get the Forks. And
Oh,
I mean, that was an extraordinary episode. This, I'm just going to say it, this may be one of the best episodes of anything I've ever seen. Like, I
wow.
spent a lot of time trying to go back in my head and think about like the truly really, really great episodes. Like
Mhm.
the last episode, I thought that was probably close to as good as this was Rainbow and Ted Lasso. But I think this is a better episode than Rainbow. I kind of went back to like the pilot of Lost, to Ozymandias from
Yes.
Breaking Bad, like these like really really iconic episodes. Like to me this is up there. I'm never going to be so superlative that I'm going to
Wow.
like stand on top of a mountain and be like this is the one episode of all time, but every frame of this episode is outstanding, emotional, intentional. I mean, this episode smashed me into pieces, but
Mhm.
also occasionally at times tried to put me back together. I can't think of a more perfect like story way to end the season as what this was.
Wow, well, that is saying a lot. For those of you who don't know, we've been TV journalists for 13 years
Yes.
and we've been covering TV here at the YouTube channel for like 5 years, but it's something to be saying that this is like the best episode you've ever seen because the amount of TV
Yeah.
that Matt and I have watched is incredible.
I
It was a very good episode. It is up there for me. I don't know if it's the best, but it is definitely one of the top.
how dare you say it's not one of those? I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I'll
This
just see myself out.
yeah. Well, we could just say this episode is perfect. Goodbye. We'll see you in
Yeah.
season 3. No, no, we have so much to get into with this episode. Like, there's all these little moments of brilliance, all these little
Yes.
intentional choices. Like,
Yep.
this is going to be so much fun to dive into, and hopefully, it's as successful a meal as what Cicero got at the very, very end.
Oh, that chocolate banana. Oh
Uh,
my goodness. Listen, the
yeah,
details were so good in this episode. Like
yeah.
that this show does that better than any other show is those details paying off down the road where they'll mention something and then it'll pay off and mention something else and it'll pay off. It is so well done.
All right. Well, be sure to hit that subscribe button because, yeah, we are done with The Bear Season 2, a thought that depresses me endlessly because now we're in the same boat as everybody else where we just have to sit back and just cross our fingers for a premiere date soon.
Yep.
But we have a lot of other stuff coming up here. We're
Mhm.
covering True Detective Season
Yep.
4 in the new year. We'll obviously be back for The Bear Season 3 when that premieres.
Absolutely. So hit that subscribe button. It really helps support Matt and I here at the channel.
Okay. I want to start by just saying the most perfect monologue I've perhaps ever heard.
Mhm.
I don't need to provide amusement or enjoyment. I don't need to receive amusement or enjoyment. I'm
Oh.
completely fine with that because no amount of good is worth how terrible this feels. It's just a complete waste of effing time. My goodness. This hit me like a ton of bricks, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it. Like I have felt this way before. I think a lot of people have felt this way before when
Yep,
you
me
feel
too.
so like lonely and so sort of separated from the world that you wonder what your purpose is and what it is you can do. Like this is such a vulnerable, like, raw moment for Carmi in the midst of everything else, and it's surrounded by this like just ridiculous premise of him being locked in a refrigerator. And like, if this was a screwball comedy, we would all probably be like, ah, look at Carmi stuck in a refrigerator. I mean, a freezer. But this is like the saddest thing imaginable.
Yeah, and it is his own doing because throughout this whole season there's been frustration on my part, and I don't know anybody else when you were watching it for the first time, where it was just like, Carmi is so many people are relying on him to get this restaurant together. They have such a short amount of time, tons of money, everybody's time, everybody's focus, and he's off with Claire and he's, getting amusement and enjoyment and
Mhm.
he's providing amusement and enjoyment, but he's letting everybody else around him down. And the timing of it was just so poor. Instead of being like, listen, I really do want to go out with you, but I do need you to be patient and wait for me. If you really want to see me, wait for me until after this is opened, and then I can give the proper amount of attention to this, but I can't before then. And he didn't do that. So we end up in this situation where he knew that the handle to this fridge was going to be, it was broken. It could break off.
Yeah.
It did break off because he still didn't end up calling the fridge guy like he was supposed to in the first place. So he's there of his own doing. He didn't pay attention. He didn't to the things he needed to pay attention to. And for me, him saying this also felt a lot like he was just like, I don't need these things because I don't deserve these things. Like we saw him see a vision of his old boss and they're basically, again, putting him down. You're slow. You're not good enough. You're not fast enough. You don't deserve this. And that's sort of just, I think a lot of people do that to themselves as well when they're really already in that dark place, feeling bad. You just pile on yourself. And him in this moment where he's really like, I don't deserve these things, and I'm okay with not deserving these things because I've got other things to focus on that may not be joy and amusement, but they are other things that people depend on me for.
We could literally spend an hour just on this scene because I think there
It's
is
so sad.
it's so sad and there's so much to unpack just from this individual moment and why it happens and when it happens. I think a lot of it is exactly what you're saying. He feels like he doesn't deserve these things. He's been
Yeah.
put down a lot in his life.
Yep.
I also feel like on some level he knew that this wasn't going to last with Claire eventually. I think he knew that she wasn't the right person for him when the chips were down. Otherwise, he had opportunities in the past. This is not somebody new who is just coming into his life for the first time. I think so much of this relationship was sort of born out of this circumstance, this idea, what he has been working on, and something that I think he did want for himself, but I think he kind of blinded himself to a little bit of the truth of it, which is that he did like her. He liked the amusement and enjoyment part of it very much, but at the same time, there was always something missing. And I think an interesting question to come out of all this is if this particular fridge moment does not happen, how much longer does this relationship go? And as heartbreaking as this was here, I think it would have been even worse for Carmi and definitely for Claire if it is 3 months down the line and they're more invested in this relationship and it just ends at that point. I still feel like if Carmi knew that Claire was the one and like she was going to be the person in his life and the thing that matters the most, this wouldn't have happened. He would still be with her. He would have found a way.
That's the thing, is that because Carmi's in the frame of mind that he's in, and timing, this whole season's been about timing. I
Yeah.
mean, Marcus asking out Sydney like right before they're about to like have, dinner and everything. It's just like the timing is so bad. Could she have said yes at another time? Maybe.
Yeah.
Could this relationship have actually grown into something where Carmi was fully invested? Yes, I think it could have. Like, I don't think she was necessarily the right one for him. I think he was just at a time that he was in therapy. He felt like he needed to have a girlfriend or have a relationship. He needed to find some sort of amusement and enjoyment and fun. And then here's Claire. She was there at that timing of, I think I need these things in my life. Here's somebody that I know that can provide these things for me, and I can provide them for her. So, okay, this works out then, that it wasn't like, oh, here's the love of my life. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Because he has said in the past that she is not the love of his life, that, somebody that he may have been interested in, but it wasn't that. However, again, like I say, the timing of it, if he had waited until after the restaurant was already going, he may have actually been able to turn this into something that mattered to him more.
It's an interesting, perplexing issue because this is just a guy who lives so much in his head and deals so much with self-doubt and trying to find a way to make him happy. And so I think he never thinks through a lot of things when it comes to timing and leadership
No.
and functionality in the way in which a lot of other people do. And the thing is that Carmi obviously needed to figure out for himself exactly where he was going to go with Claire and how he really felt with her. But the thing is, you're not just dealing with her feelings, you're dealing with the feelings of a lot of people around her because they made such a specific point in this episode of Richie earlier on talking about how he grew up with Claire and sort of the history that they have, so that when Carmi does this and this whole monologue takes place, and of course he thinks that he's talking to Tina in this moment,
Mhm.
Richie sees Claire go out of there and she's just devastated. And then this leads to devastating sequence number 2 of this episode, which
Yeah.
is Richie versus Carmi.
Man, this was a rough fight to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, they said some things that they are not going to be able to walk back. Like, do I think they'll be able to continue on with the restaurant? I do, but it's going to be really difficult. Like, some of the stuff that they were saying, like, about how he's a bad dad and like that he didn't go to Mikey's funeral. Like, you cannot walk these things back. Carmi's spitting at the door of the
Yeah.
fridge. Like, it was awful. And over Claire, which I kind of thought was an interesting thing because, yes, like you said, Richie has a real soft spot for Claire. And it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, he wants to be with her or anything like
No.
that. He's just known her a really long time. We even saw in the past at the Christmas dinner
Mhm.
that, he was one of the guys that was just like, hey, she's so great and she really likes you. And like, this is a great chance for you, sort of thing. I think he loves Claire. He loves Carmi. He loves the idea of them being together and both of them providing happiness for each other. I think deep down, Richie loves love and he
Yeah.
loves these two people and he wants to see them together. So to see one of them so hurt by the other one, and that's what it felt more like, that it was more about his own feelings in that and not really all about just that Claire's feelings are hurt, because it's like, okay, well,
Mhm.
you don't know what happened. You don't know why she's crying. You don't know if they've broken up. You don't know what's going on. Like, you're just going to start telling off Carmi without any information.
It just felt a lot like they're in this very high stress environment. There are a lot of things between the two of them that have largely gone unsaid, which is saying something because we've seen them scream at each other before.
Yep.
But it was just the worst possible combination of all these different things. And like you said earlier, timing. Timing was also
Mhm.
really, really terrible for all of this to then happen. And, all their worst instincts came out. And it is this big fundamental question of, okay, yeah, we know there's a season 3. I think it's fair to say that both actors are going to be back. If they were not, like, I would literally start crying. So I assume the story is going to move forward and they will find some sort of way to talk to each other. Maybe they will have a mediator. Maybe Sugar can be there to help.
I hope that they do. I mean, this reminds me a lot of This Is Us and that fight with Kevin and Randall on
Hmm.
that front yard. Like, they said some stuff that it took so long for them to be able to get past, like some deep dark stuff like what was said in this episode. And it's tough because it's like this is their opening night and their whole week is booked with more people, more customers. So it's like they have to get over it by tomorrow, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's no waiting around, having time to get through it. And Carmi needs Richie. Richie stepped up in a spot where Carmi's in the fridge, Sydney's falling apart, her and Marcus, they're on really bad terms at this point. Marcus really snapped at her because
Yeah.
she hadn't returned his text messages. He was just like, oh, cool. So we're not even friends anymore. Like, you can't even talk to me anymore. And he's snapping at her. Richie really had to step in and in those 5 minutes got all those orders out. This restaurant needs Richie.
It does, and it needs Carmi to realize that it's okay if he can't always see the good in
Mhm.
himself, but he needs to be okay with other people seeing and recognizing the good in him.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that yes, they were able to get all these dishes out there in the restaurant while he was still locked up and losing his mind and screaming to where everybody could hear him. They
Man, he was
still,
like a bear in a
yeah,
cage, literally in there.
but they all were able to do this because of him. He is the
Yeah.
person who got Richie to go over and get this proper training.
Mhm.
He got Marcus overseas.
Yep.
He helped all of these characters in their own way to be able to achieve this. And that is amazing. Like, it is this real incredible thing. But rather than sitting in there and like acknowledging, hey, these people are able to still do this because of the work that I've done, he
Mhm.
is just in there, not literally, but metaphorically, just punching himself in the face time and time again, being just like, I screwed all of this up. I did this. I did this. And yes, you made mistakes, Carmi. There's some things you should have done differently, but you know what? It's life. You live and you learn. You do things and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to do that this time. I'll handle this stuff a little bit better.
Okay, speaking of that, because Carmi is, I've said this before, very, very much like his mom.
Hmm.
His mom, that scene with her and Pete, with Pete outside the restaurant, begging her to come in, her putting him in a really tough spot
Yeah.
where she was like, don't tell anybody. I was like, oh man, is he going to tell Sugar or not? And it was so tough. I mean, it was so heartbreaking to see her in this spot where she's just like, she doesn't know if she can go in there. This is Mikey's old place. So she's dealing with a lot of that hurt where she hasn't been able to step in there yet. Things with her kids haven't been great. She is self aware enough to feel like, is she going to go in there and take a good thing away from her kids? And she doesn't want to do that. She also didn't know that Sugar was pregnant. So
Yeah.
now she knows that. Her begging Pete to be like, please listen, like, I can't go in. I can't do this to them. I really want this to be good for them. I'm so proud of them. Please don't tell them that I was here. I was just like, oh my God, this is such a burden on him.
It is, and you could just see it and feel it when he went back in
Oh
there
my
with
goodness. He was
Sugar.
so
I know,
emotional.
I feel really, really bad because, like you said, this is an impossible position to put him in.
Yeah, it is because if and when Sugar ever finds out that her mom was out there and Pete did not tell her,
Yeah,
like, how bad is that going to hurt their relationship,
yeah,
or is she going to understand? It's not going to be good. I think that's coming back around next
yeah.
season.
I think for sure it's going to come back around, and he's just in this horrible situation where it's like he's either going to devastate Sugar, or if he tells Sugar and Sugar reaches out to Donna, then it's potentially going to ruin whatever relationship is there and cause even further problems there. And so he's just in this really horrible spot. And this is a character in Pete who really, no offense to Pete, it's just kind of been a non-factor through a lot of the Bear. I have not thought about him for longer than 5 seconds.
No, me neither, but he had me like choking up
Yes.
at that scene at the dinner table.
It's just a testament to the quality of writing on this show, and how they also filmed the Bear in a really compressed window, and it
Mhm.
almost feels like they're like, okay, we're making this decision, we're gonna stand firm on this decision, we're not gonna second guess it, we're gonna write it, we're gonna film it. If it doesn't work, people will be mad at us later.
Yep.
I give them a lot of respect for that. They really took some risks. They dove headfirst into a lot of different things. And even in the midst of all this just really devastating, like personal stuff that's going on in this episode, like we do still have some pretty funny moments that kind of take place throughout all of this.
Mhm.
Mostly the facts, who for some reason, we've got one fact here who is a waiter in the midst of all of this. He's moved up in the world, I guess.
Oh, and Neil took this job so
Yeah,
seriously. Like, even when Richie was like, listen, you're going to be the guy who's out front right now while I'm running the tickets. And he was so nervous.
yeah,
And just seeing him like hold his face and be like, you got this kind of thing. You can do this. I
yeah.
believe in you. And he went out and he did it. It's just like, the change in so many of these characters this season has just been like, the growth has been really good, like
Yeah.
really steady in a not unbelievable way.
Yeah, it felt really, really earned. And while they've all
Yeah.
changed, there's still a part of them that is who they are. Like Richie got brought back to that place where he's, angry, upset Richie again.
Yep.
We saw in the midst of all the good stuff, we saw an attempt to hit on Claire's friend at a certain point, being talking about the hat, which she called a barrette, which maybe some people, I'm not a French person, but
Some people do call it that.
okay, all right.
It's not. It's a beret, but it's your pronunciation. You do what you
Yeah,
want, man.
there was still these little moments that felt very human, that were occasionally fun. There was that really great moment with Sydney and her father, close to all of it, where he just tells her, basically that's the thing. She's done it. Like he knows that she's done it. She's making her dreams come true, and he is so proud of her. And this is happening still at an instance where she's just like sick outside because all of this has
Oh,
taken like that much of a toll on her.
poor sweet Sydney. Like she really tried her best in this whole thing. It was a lot, and I think it again kind of goes to show that Carmi and Sydney are sort of two halves of a whole, that they
Yeah.
work much better together, that they really do. And so with Carmi being locked in the fridge and her being without him and him being without her, it got kind of chaotic. That's why it made sense that Richie was the person to step up, because Richie's depending on himself.
Can every other actor nominated in the comedy field, I know this is weird to call this show a comedy based on
It's
this
so
episode, but like
not.
every other actor could just stay home on the Emmy night
I
because
know.
Jeremy's getting it for that scene. Io's getting it for basically everything she's done the entire
And
season.
she should.
Yeah, Eva's getting it for that scene with Jeremy
Oh my
at the end. Like
goodness.
every Oliver Platt, who said, I don't know, he didn't have that much dialogue, but just the way that he played that chocolate banana scene,
Oh my
it
goodness.
was just, I, Oliver is such an amazing actor.
Yeah,
And
he is.
like, and I'm not trying to disparage Chicago Med because he has done good stuff over there, but rarely do you get to like have a moment that is like earned and that personal for him over there because you're dealing with all these case of the week stuff. He's just like he does so much and so little in this episode. I can't think of a single thing that's wrong with this episode. It's not a single thing I would change. Nothing.
No, it was solid all the way through. I mean, thank you to everybody who asked us to cover this. I know
Yeah.
we didn't cover it on time. We're late to the restaurant
Yeah.
here, but we really appreciate everybody who recommended this show because it is so good and it was really a great ride going through it. Like
Yeah.
I cannot wait for season 3. Like I just can't wait.
Please just give us through us in the summer of 2024. Like that's not I will be okay waiting to that long. But if you guys are like, if it's fall or next December, I'm just gonna be like an overcooked egg. And I'm just gonna be like, part of me's gonna be on fire and I'm gonna smell bad. It's not gonna be good for anybody.
And listen, do not drop them all at once. I know you're listening to me, Hulu. Do not drop these all at once.
If you drop them all at
I'd
once,
be so mad.
we are going to send pre-Forks Richie after you, and he's not going to be happy.
And they'll have smudges on them.
Oh, look what, okay, all right. Well, no, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much to our patrons. We'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
here next time.